The billionaire's vault was filled with 12 billion rupees in cash, but he couldn't spend a single penny. The reason was a new machine that triggered an alarm whenever counterfeit money was inserted. It turned out the billionaire was India's largest counterfeiter, producing 1 billion rupees of fake currency every day. But this new machine rendered his 60 tons of counterfeit money useless. One of his subordinates then showed him a counterfeit note that easily passed the machine's test. The billionaire was shocked and immediately contacted the maker of these notes. When he learned that the notes were hand-drawn, he was stunned. The new currency used advanced anti-counterfeiting technology, with the most difficult feature being the microtext, which ordinary digital printers couldn't replicate. The man examined the notes under a microscope, meticulously handcrafting perfect bills. However, the printing machine could only print one color at a time, while real currency had 4 colors. His friend Firos helped solve the problem by printing all 4 colors and adding a shiny anti-counterfeit strip. To make the notes appear older, the man soaked them in tea and dried them, making the fake notes look like old currency. They took the notes to a shop, but the shopkeeper immediately recognized them as fakes. Back home, the man tested the notes and realized the problem was the thickness of the paper, which caused the fake notes to be detected. The man suddenly pulled out a gun inside the police station and fired at a nearby officer. The officer didn't die right away and struggled to reach the alarm, but before he could press it, he collapsed to the ground. Moments later, 2 more policemen returned. The man calmly claimed the officer had slipped and fallen. When they bent over to help, he raised his gun again and shot them both dead.
Well, to clarify, I shot him in the head and then he took a little tumble.
Hearing the shots, another officer stepped out of his office. The killer pretended to be frightened, lured the officer closer, and fired through a bunch of balloons that were blocking his view. The bullet hit straight through the officer's chest.
What is the first rule of policing, huh? Beware the unusual element.
The gunfire alerted a female officer, but the man had already pulled out a submachine gun. Bullets smashed into the walls, forcing her to retreat toward the cells. She ducked behind the bulletproof glass and quickly started to change the cell door code while he kept firing. Bullets hit the glass like a storm of hail. Eventually, it shattered. She raised her weapon, but it clicked empty. In desperation, she grabbed another gun, fired back, and threw herself into a cell, slamming the door shut behind her. The door rattled under gun. Looking down, she realized she'd been hit. The man tried to blow the door open but was nearly struck by a ricochet. A few minutes later, her colleague arrived and told her the killer had escaped, but she saw the look in his eyes. He was lying. The mole dropped the act and admitted he was working with the shooter. With the cell locked, he decided to break through the wall. Inside the cell were 2 inmates, one who'd come to prison to hide from killers, and another who was the killer himself. The officer called for backup, but the thick concrete blocked her radio. As the hammering grew louder, she made a risky choice. She freed the prisoners and told them to get help. Meanwhile, 2 more officers returned, saw bullet casings on the floor, and ran toward the noise. They found their colleague smashing a wall, unaware he was the mole. Suddenly,
what the fuck are you doing? Who's this? Why is he out like...
a tall, well-dressed prisoner burst through, his cold stare making them panic. They dropped their guns and ran. The heavier officer fled the other way and ran into the second prisoner, who shot both his legs and poured chili water into the wounds. The mole hid inside a restroom. Hearing footsteps, he fired without thinking. When he went closer to check, he froze. He had just killed his own partner. The man dropped a mysterious liquid into a glass, added white powder, and stirred it carefully. He poured the mixture into a conical mold, took out the solidified gel, inserted it into the glass, then injected a prepared reagent. He took out a stopwatch and began timing. He did all this to assassinate a mining tycoon who loved swimming outdoors and had built a cantilevered pool that hung over the top floor of his skyscraper. Every afternoon, the tycoon swam at the same time, a perfect opportunity. The man sneaked into an apartment beneath the pool, used his tools to open the glass, then climbed up the outer wall like a spider, reaching the pool's underside with suction cups. He drilled a small hole in the pool's bottom, inserted the conical charge, and injected a bit of chemical reagent. Just then, the target swam directly above him. Their eyes met for a brief instant, and the glass floor shattered in a flash. The man immediately released the suction cups and slid back through the window opening to escape, while the tycoon was trapped by the sudden suction, unable to break free. And just like that, the assassination, disguised as an accident, was complete. The man had an innate talent for mimicry, even making gunshots sound indistinguishable from the real thing. His exceptional skill caught the attention of the police chief, who admitted him to the police academy as an exception. One day, while the instructor was inspecting the dormitory, he suddenly heard bird calls coming from the barracks. To his surprise, the man was practicing vocal sounds. The instructor couldn't believe it. In class, a student wanted to sneak out and ask the man for help. The man began his performance.
Report immediately to the commandant's office. Cadet Mahoney.
And the instructor, thinking it was genuine, urged the student to hurry and leave. Seeing the success of this trick, the man then mimicked a loudspeaker command, causing another instructor to leave. His talent for sound imitation was unmatched. He could even replicate the sound of a razor perfectly. Soon after, several officers on duty were surrounded by thugs. The superiors were trapped in a car while the thugs violently shook the vehicle. The superior threatened them with a loudspeaker, but the thugs, outnumbering the officers, became more aggressive. At that moment, the man mimicked a barrage of gunfire. The thugs, thinking the police had opened fire, panicked and fled. The superior quickly stepped on on the gas and drove off, successfully escaping. The man's mimicry had been key to their safe escape. How terrifying are prisons in Thailand. Men and women are locked together, half-naked prisoners crammed into hot. One night, a man woke up to find his cellmate dead, but he simply turned over and went back to sleep. In the morning, if the guards were in a good mood, they would throw the corpse away like garbage. The man tried to stay low, but as the only white prisoner, hiding was impossible. When fetching water, he was provoked and finally fought back. As punishment, he was locked in a dark cell with no food or water for 4 days. After release, he was moved to the maximum security block, where the inmates were ruthless. He and a new boy were surrounded and humiliated. The next day, the boy was found hanging from the bars. The man couldn't sleep, tormented by nightmares. He went to the infirmary for medicine but was told only white prisoners had to pay. Furious, he attacked the doctor and guards, biting the doctor's neck like a wild animal. Reinforcements beat him nearly to death and threw him into an empty cell to rot. Yet he survived. Shackled and scarred, he was sent back to the violent ward. From that day on, no one dared to challenge him again. While clearing the battlefield, the new recruit found 4 coins in a dead body's pocket and was thrilled. However, when a comrade saw him, he had to give away 1 coin to keep it a secret. To his surprise, the comrade immediately reported it, and the platoon leader arrived to demand all the coins. The recruit tried to explain that 1 coin was his reward. They were overwhelmed. The enemy's firepower was overwhelming, and the defense line quickly collapsed. The platoon leader, fearing for his life, ordered the retreat, but the recruit stayed behind, continuing to fight. Focused on the enemy machine gunner, he steadied himself. When he turned to report, however, he realized his comrades had disappeared. Trapped in the trench, he had nowhere to escape. Desperate, he lay in a pile of bodies, covering himself with blood to pretend he was dead. The enemy, unaware, shot at every body nearby, but he was shielded by the corpses. Once the chaos subsided, the recruit survived but was deeply shaken by the brutal reality of war. Looking around at the destruction, he realized the cruelty of both war and human nature. Taking off his uniform, he decided to leave the battlefield behind and head home. The man poured alcohol all over his body and drank the remaining alcohol. He then smeared engine oil and dirt to cover the scent. Finally, he used a steel needle to pierce his nose, creating a wound. He wanted to disguise himself as a homeless man, however, his suspicious behavior still caught the attention of the police.
Я не ворую.
The police assumed he was just a drunk and let him go. Little did they know, he was the very criminal they were searching for. The sheriff quickly found the man's car. However, the fingerprints in the car had already been wiped clean by the man. Still, they found some clues. On the passenger seat was a button, and nearby was a bottle of alcohol. They finally realized that the homeless man was likely the mastermind behind the bank robbery. But it was too late, the man had already left. Trouble was about to arise because the security guard at the scrapyard had seen his real face. The police immediately asked the guard for help to create a composite sketch of the criminal. But what they didn't know was that the man had already had a hacker infiltrate the police system and was monitoring everything. Upon learning that the guard was going to recognize him, the man hurriedly searched through the guard's social media information, planning to use the guard's family as leverage to threaten him. This fallen king decided to make the first person he met on the island a knight. However, when that person picked up the fallen sword, he killed the king with a single strike. Soon, a blue light flashed, and to the king's surprise, he was resurrected. Believing he now had the power that even death feared, the king was shocked when the servant he had been stabbed by also revived. Once a mighty king who led thousands of soldiers to conquer the world, the king was struck by lightning and fell into the water, losing his crown. At a critical moment, his servant risked his life to save him, removing his heavy armor and boots just in time. When the king awoke on the beach, he found himself on a rich and vast island, where he hoped to establish his rule. However, the servant reminded him that his army had been lost in the storm. Undeterred,
An army doesn't make a king. A king makes an army.
the king pointed to a woman panning sand by the shore, intending to make her the first citizen. But to his surprise, she kicked him away, picked up the sword, and killed both the servant and the king. The king saw his servant revive again but felt no joy this time. The woman explained that this was the island of immortality, where no one dies but no one can leave. Instead of fearing this, the king desired to rule over this eternal kingdom. He challenged the island's true king, but within 3 seconds, he woke up on the beach again. Realizing he could never truly die, the king continued to challenge the king, but he failed again and again. He tried to settle their fate with a game of chess but lost again.